The cobbles are heating up, and if you thought Gary Windass had left his shady past behind, you're in for a massive shock. Next week on Coronation Street, Maria Connor's entire world threatens to crumble as she realizes her marriage is hitting an absolute crisis point. Gary has been sneaking around for weeks, acting totally out of character, and Maria's gut is telling her that another woman is involved. And not just any woman, but Sarah Platt. The whispers, the hushed conversations, the sudden disappearances, it is all adding up to an absolute nightmare for Maria. Before we dive deep into the juicy details of Gary's lies, the sudden guilt trips, and the incredibly dark secrets surrounding Theo Silverton's tragic demise, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to CoronationST Update. We bring you the latest, most dramatic spoilers, theories, and exclusive tea from the street, so hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on your favourite soap. Maria is practically at her wit's end, and her paranoia reaches an all-time high in upcoming scenes. You know how it is when you just have that sinking feeling in your stomach that your partner is hiding something massive from you. That is exactly where Maria is sitting right now. She has been watching Gary like a hawk, noting every time he leaves the room to check his phone, every time he makes a lame excuse about having to work late, and most importantly, every time he crosses paths with Sarah Platt. There is a deeply undeniable tension between Gary and Sarah lately, and Maria is far from blind. She knows these two have an extensive and highly complicated history. Gary has always had a soft spot for Sarah, and the idea that they might be rekindling some sort of forbidden intimacy behind her back is tearing Maria apart. The tension boils over in the most unexpected place, the salon. Izzy Armstrong pops in, expecting nothing more than a quick trim and some light gossip, but she ends up getting way more than she bargained for. Instead of treating Izzy like a customer, Maria immediately treats her like a captive therapist. The scissors are barely snipping before Maria unleashes a flood of anxieties, practically cornering Izzy with her wild theories. Maria explains that she has been pushing Gary for answers, desperately trying to get him to slip up or confess what he is actually hiding. She tells Izzy that she knows it involves Sarah. The two of them have been caught sneaking around for weeks, having hushed conversations in corners and darting away the second anyone approaches them. It is highly suspicious behaviour, and Maria is convinced that Gary is stepping out on her. But Gary, ever the smooth talker when his back is against the wall, completely dismisses Maria's theories. Instead of having a calm, reassuring conversation with his wife, he decides to pull a classic deflection move. He creates a massive distraction by suddenly booking an extravagant holiday for the entire family. We are talking about pulling out all the stops. Izzy, Liam and Jake are absolutely thrilled at the prospect of a getaway. The kids are buzzing. Izzy is pleasantly surprised. But Maria? Maria immediately smells a rat. To her, this grand gesture does not feel like a spontaneous act of family love. It feels like a massive, glaring red flag. While chatting to Izzy in the salon, Maria lays out her entire thought process, and honestly, her logic is pretty hard to argue with. She tells Izzy that sure, he booked a fancy trip, but that does absolutely nothing to explain his recent shady behaviour. In fact, Maria points out that the holiday actually makes things so much worse. She looks right at Izzy and asks the golden question. What is the very first thing someone does when they have crossed the line, when they have betrayed their vows and engaged in intimacy with someone else? Izzy, catching on to Maria's train of thought, quietly mentions the classic guilt present. And Maria fiercely agrees. Exactly. The holiday is not a reward, it is a giant, expensive band-aid meant to cover up Gary's crushing guilt. As the salon conversation continues, Maria starts connecting more dots. She points out that it is not just Gary who has been acting weird. Sarah has been completely on edge too, acting incredibly strangely around Maria whenever they bump into each other on the street. Sarah cannot hold eye contact. She rushes her words, and she clearly has something heavy weighing on her conscience. Izzy, trying to play the voice of reason, tries to calm Maria down. Izzy is not entirely convinced that Gary would actually be unfaithful to Maria, at least not this time around. She knows Gary has made plenty of mistakes in the past, but she wants to believe he is committed to his family now. However, Maria is absolutely relentless. Her mind is made up, and she is fiercely determined to prove her suspicions right, no matter how much it might hurt her in the process. But here is where the plot thickens, and where the classic Coronation Street twists start to reveal themselves. While Maria is entirely convinced that Gary and Sarah are having an affair, the truth might be so much darker and far more dangerous than simple infidelity. The reality is that Gary and Sarah have been heavily drawn back together ever since the shocking and tragic demise of Theo Silverton. If you have been keeping up with the street, you know that Theo's unexpected end has sent absolute shockwaves through the community, and the circumstances surrounding his final moments are heavily clouded in mystery. The reasons why Gary and Sarah are suddenly tied at the hip regarding this tragedy are currently unclear, but the speculation is running absolutely wild. Right now, serious accusations have surfaced, and Gary is sitting right at the top of the suspect list for this dark mystery. Viewers recently saw a deeply chilling flashback scene that showed Gary standing directly over Theo's motionless body on the very night the villain met his fate. The look on Gary's face in that flashback said it all. He was involved. Whether he was the one who actually caused Theo's demise, or if he just stumbled upon the scene and made a terrible choice to hide the truth, remains to be seen. But Gary's hands are definitely not clean in this situation. He is drowning in a massive secret, and this kind of pressure is exactly what is making him act so erratically at home. This brings us to the most gripping theory on the cobbles right now. Is Sarah Platt covering for Gary? Sarah knows Gary better than almost anyone, and despite all the bad blood and complicated feelings between them, there is a twisted sense of loyalty that still lingers. If Sarah knows what really happened to Theo, or if she walked in on Gary during the aftermath of the incident, she might be helping him keep his dark secret buried. This would completely explain all the sneaking around, the hushed whispers, and the intense anxiety both of them are carrying. They aren't hiding an affair from Maria. They are hiding a massive, life-altering secret from the authorities. But if Sarah is indeed providing Gary with a false alibi or helping him cover his tracks, she is playing an incredibly dangerous game, especially considering her current relationship with DC Kit Green. Kit is a man on a mission, and he is not the type to let things slide. Now that Summer Spellman has officially been cleared of any wrongdoing in the investigation, Kit has completely shifted his focus. He has openly vowed to make Gary Windass the absolute centre of his inquiry. Kit is circling like a shark, looking for any inconsistency, any slip-up, and any piece of evidence that can pin Theo's demise directly on Gary. This sets up a massive, high-stakes collision course. If Kit realises that the woman he is seeing is actively working to sabotage his investigation and protect his primary suspect, the fallout will be absolutely nuclear. Sarah is essentially risking her own freedom, her relationship, and her family's peace of mind to protect a man who always seems to attract trouble. How long can Sarah keep her cool while sleeping next to the very detective who is hunting Gary down? Every single question Kit asks about the case is going to feel like a trap, and Sarah is going to have to lie right to his face, day after day. The psychological toll that is going to take on her will be absolutely immense. Meanwhile, Maria is completely in the dark about the criminal element of this entire situation. She is so hyper-focused on the idea of Gary and Sarah sharing moments of forbidden intimacy that she cannot see the massive legal storm brewing right over her own house. Maria is going to keep digging, keep pushing Gary, and keep interrogating Sarah, thinking she is trying to expose a cheating husband. But what happens when Maria's jealousy inadvertently blows the lid off Gary's dark secret? What if Maria is the one who accidentally hands Kit Green the exact puzzle piece he needs to take Gary down for good? Maria's desperate need to uncover an affair might just end up putting her own husband behind bars for a much heavier accusation. The tragic irony here is that Gary's attempt to protect Maria from his dark reality is the exact thing destroying their marriage. By keeping her in the dark about Theo, he has left a massive void of information, and Maria's mind has filled that void with her worst insecurities. The guilt-present holiday is a perfect example of Gary's flawed logic. He thought throwing money at the situation and offering a fun distraction would quiet the noise. Instead, it just amplified Maria's suspicions to a deafening volume. You really have to wonder when Gary will finally realize that his constant secrets do far more damage than the truth ever could. As we look toward the upcoming episodes, the tension is going to be incredibly thick. You will not want to miss a single second of Maria playing detective, Izzy caught in the uncomfortable middle, Sarah sweating bullets under pressure, and Kit Green relentlessly closing the net around Gary. The absolute DMM drama of it all is going to be spectacular. Will Gary confess the truth to Maria before she completely dismantles their life together? Will Sarah crack under the immense weight of lying to a detective? And most importantly, what really happened on the night Theo Silverton met his dark fate? The Cobbles are hiding a massive secret, and the clock is loudly ticking down to an explosive reveal that will undoubtedly change the lives of the Windass and Platt families forever.